Are you looking to build influence? Or maybe to drive more traffic? But bottom line, you want to change the game. You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Business Building Book Club. We're going to give you the tools you need to succeed, both online and in person. Brought to you by Coach Molly and 3 Pines Leadership. Hello and welcome back to the Business Building Book Club. I'm your host, Coach Molly from 3 Pines Leadership, and thanks for joining me. Last episode, we started into secret number 1, finding your voice in Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson himself. And this week, we're going to dive into the second half of the same chapter. But before we do, I want to remind you guys to connect with me on whatever social platform you deem appropriate for you. So I'm Coach Molly with an E on Twitter. You can find me at 3 Pines Leadership on YouTube and on Instagram as well. So let me know what books you want to read, what's working for you, what's not working for you, all of that kind of stuff. And you can find the Business Building Book Club in both podcast form on all of your favorite podcast platforms, as well as in video format on our YouTube channel. All right, everyone. I'll just remind you that this season we are going through Russell Brunson's, this whole podcast so far has been diving into Russell Brunson's Secrets trilogy. Season 1, we dove into .com secrets, and this season, we're diving into Expert Secrets, which is the Underground Playbook for converting your online visitors into lifelong customers. And I always forget that subheadline. Well, last week, as I said, we started this chapter of finding your voice, which is a fantastic outline for the whole process, all of the processes you're going to learn in this book. So we started off by talking about the 5 phases to becoming an expert. Well, what I did was I gave you the first 4, and today we're going to jump in to number 5. So let's do a quick recap. So first, the first stage to becoming an expert is to embrace your role as a dreamer. Looking at all of the possibilities that are out there. Look at all of the different options and routes you can go. Be curious, because this is where that spark of inspiration comes from. And then your second phase is to embrace your new role as a reporter. Because your role is now to go out and to share with the world what you have learned. You take that inspiration, that dreamer inspiration and passion, and now you're going to share it with the world, and you're going to teach people what you've been learning. The third step you're going to do is you're going to build your frameworks in order to teach what you have learned with the world. And then the fourth step is you're going to start putting that framework into play for other people. You've already done the work on yourself, and now you're going to share those frameworks and tweak them with other people by working for free. And now we're going to dive in to phase number 5, becoming an expert. Once you've gone through your first 4 phases, you'll be ready to start using your frameworks and leading people as an expert. But Russell, I'm not certified. I can't help people yet. This is one objection I hear way too often. I'm not certified. I don't have a degree. I haven't been to school for this. How can I possibly claim to be an expert? I always smile when I hear these words come out of someone's mouth because I know where I came from. I ask them, well, I'm curious. You paid me $50,000 or $100,000 to teach this stuff. What do you think my credentials are? They think about it and usually say something like, I don't know. Do you have any marketing degrees? I say, nope. I barely graduated from college and I got a C in marketing. I didn't get good grades, and I don't have any certifications to my name. But guess what? I'm really good at getting results from people. My results are my certifications. Tony Robbins told me that when he first started learning neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, he signed up for a 6-month certification course, and after just a few days, he fell in love with it. He gained the skill quickly and wanted to start helping people immediately. The trainer said, you can't. You're not certified yet. Tony said, certified? I know how to help people. Let's go help. That night, he left his hotel room, walked across the street to the nearest restaurant, and started helping people quit smoking and assisting them with lots of other amazing things. He ended up getting kicked out of the program because he was practicing without being certified. Yet he's gone on to transform tens of millions of people's lives using NLP without any certifications. Your results are your certifications. I hereby give you permission to help people. You're ready now. But Russell, what if others know more about the topic than I do? There's a book and a movie called Catch Me If You Can that illustrates this point pretty well. It's the story of Frank Abagnale, a brilliant high school dropout and a famous con artist who masqueraded as an airline pilot, a pediatrician, a district attorney, among other things. At one point, he starts teaching a sociology class at Brigham Young University. He teaches the whole semester and no one ever figures out that he's not a real teacher. Later on, when they finally do catch him, the authorities ask him how he could teach the class when he didn't know anything about advanced sociology. Abagnale explained that all he had to do was be one chapter ahead of his students in order to teach the class. That's the key. You don't have to be the most knowledgeable person in the world on your topic. You just have to be one chapter ahead of the people you're helping. There will always be people in the world who are more advanced than you are, and that's fine. You can learn from them, but don't let it stop you from helping the ones who are a chapter or two behind you. This first phase is all about finding what sparks your interest, geeking out on a topic, and giving yourself permission to help other people with the things that you've learned. Who do you need to become as a leader? As I mentioned earlier, J. Abraham once said, "People are silently begging to be led," and I believe that's true. So how do you become the type of leader that they need? It starts with finding your voice. The secret to finding your voice is in sharing your message consistently for a long time. On March 26, 2013, I launched the first episode of my Marketing in Your Car podcast, which later became the Marketing Secrets Show. It seemed as good a day as any to launch it, outside of the fact that in the prior few months I had fired about 100 employees, found out that I owed more than $250,000 to the IRS, which if I didn't pay, soon, it would mean more fines and possible jail time. Almost bankrupted my company and had almost no money left in the bank and tons of credit card debt piling up. Looking back now, it seems like the worst possible time to launch a podcast teaching people my secrets of marketing. Yet that's exactly what I did. I knew that if I was going to do my own show, I had to be consistent or it wouldn't work. Out of all the types of shows that I could publish, audio, video, text, I knew that it had to be simple or I'd never stick to it. When I considered how to work it into my everyday routine, I realized that every day I had a 10-minute commute to my office. I figured that I could record each episode on my phone as I drove to work. In the episodes, I would share my thoughts about what I was doing to market my business and the lessons I was learning each day. That's how it got its original name, Marketing in Your Car. The first episodes were not good. In fact, years later, my friend Steve Larsen told me the first 45 or 46 episodes weren't very good. But then around this time is where it seemed like you found your voice, and they started getting better and better each episode after that. The good news for me, and also for you, is during your first episodes, the ones where you're the worst, no one's listening to you yet. If I hadn't done the first 45 episodes, I never would have gotten to episode 46 when I started to hit my stride. That's why it's essential to start publishing your show now, even when you're not good at it. In the process of doing your show is when you will find your voice. I was lucky that I had no idea how to check the download stats to see if anyone was listening to me when I first got started. I'm so grateful that I didn't know because I'm sure I would have been discouraged and stopped. Don't look at your stats, downloads, or numbers at first because you're just trying to build the foundation for something great, and it will take time. Interestingly, I learned how to check the download stats about 3 years into my podcast, and I discovered that I had tens of thousands of people listening to every episode. I also found out that the majority of the people who had joined my highest level mastermind groups and coaching programs had been podcast listeners first. When I asked them about it, the pattern of how most of them got into our higher end programs was shockingly similar. So many of them told me that they would listen to a few episodes, and then for some reason a particular episode would connect with them. It made them want more, so they would go back to episode number 1 and binge listen every episode over a week or 2 period of time. During the episodes, I documented my journey, and I was building my company back up. I'd share the stories of people I had a chance to work with. Often, even before they finished binging the episodes, listeners had applied to work with me. Without selling ads in my podcast, promoting my own or other people's products, both things that you can and probably should do to make money from your show, I was just telling stories of my own and of my clients. I didn't promote anything, yet the podcast has converted more casual followers into raving fans than anything else I've ever done. But it didn't start that way. It took 3+ years of consistent publishing. And let me walk you through these steps that will make your show a success. So step number 1 is to publish daily for at least a year. The first commitment you have to make is that you will be consistent. I knew when I started, if I didn't find a platform that was easy for me and easy to create content, I wouldn't be consistent. What platform makes the most sense for you? If you're a writer, you'll probably want a blog. If you like to make videos, you can start your own vlog. If you like audio, your platform would be podcasting. First, figure out where you will publish. Then decide how and when you're going to publish. Will you wake up each morning and write a 1,000-word blog post before lunch? Will you do a Facebook Live video before you go to bed each night, sharing a day's lesson? What works for you that will help you be consistent? If you can publish every day for a year, you'll never have to worry about money problems again. During the process, you'll find your voice and your audience will have the time to find you. One of my friends, Nathan Barry, wrote this post on his website recently. Endure long enough to get noticed. How many great TV shows have you discovered in season 3 or later? I started watching Game of Thrones after they had released 5 seasons. Pat Flynn had released at least 100 episodes of his podcast before I even knew it existed. I discovered Hardcore History years after Dan Carlin started producing it. This is such a common experience. There is so much content being produced that we can't possibly discover it all. So instead, we wait for the best content to float to the surface after time. If step 1 in building an audience is to create great content, step 2 is to endure long enough to get noticed. Seth Godin is very generous with his time and will appear on almost any relevant podcast, but you have to have recorded at least 100 episodes first. His filter is creators who have shown that they are willing to show up consistently for a long time. For those of you who have been around me or for any amount of time, you know that this is my soapbox I'm very firm on. You must be publishing or you will never become relevant, and you must continue publishing if you want to remain relevant. This part of the traffic flywheel does not go away. Steve Larsen knew when he bought his first tickets to Funnel Hacking Live that I was probably going to tell everyone the eternal truth. But as he packed his bags, he told his wife, "I will do everything that Russell says at this event, except publishing my own show. I won't do that." Before lunch on day 1, I told everyone the number one thing that they could do from now until next year's event would be to pick a channel and publish on it daily. I told them that if they did that every day for a year, they would never need to worry about money again. And then I did something I hadn't before. I made everyone in the audience commit to me that they would start publishing that day. Most people in the room raised their hand and were excited to take on the challenge, but very few took what I said at face value. On the other hand, when Steve Larsen made the commitment, the one that he went in saying he wasn't willing to make, he decided to go all in. He decided to start a podcast, and at that event, he created his first episodes. About a week later, he applied for a job at ClickFunnels and became my new head funnel builder. He sat next to me every day for the next 2 years. As I was working on my projects, he watched me share, i.e., publish, the lessons I was learning along the way. I was podcasting, posting on Facebook, posting on Periscope shows, and more. He told me that he was shocked at how much I was publishing, and so he modeled what I was doing. For the next 2 years he worked at ClickFunnels, he kept publishing his show. After a few months, it started getting some traction. It kept growing over the years, and when he decided to make the jump from being an employee to becoming his own entrepreneur, he had a large following of people who were consuming everything he was publishing. That show and his following became the launchpad he needed to jumpstart his career. He had the fans and he had the following, so he simply introduced them to the new offers he created and it became an overnight success. Step 2 is to document the journey. The biggest question and the largest fear that most people have when I tell them to start their own show is they have no idea what they will talk about. One of the most powerful things I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk is the concept he calls document, don't create. I reposted an article from his blog which goes deeper into this concept. If you want people to start listening to you, you have to show up. What I mean is that there's a lot of you out there who are producing enough articles or videos or pieces of content to build your influence. Too many content creators think that they only have that one bat, that they have to make the one most beautifully created video or image or rant on Facebook. But what they don't realize is that their hunger to make the perfect piece of content is what's actually crippling them. It's true that if you want to be seen or heard on social media, you have to put out valuable content on a regular basis. You should be doing a YouTube vlog or podcast or some sort of long-form audio or video series at least once a week. You should be posting on Instagram and or Snapchat stories at least 6 to 7 times a day. Now you're probably thinking, whoa, that's a lot. How do I create 6 to 7 meaningful things a day? I'll give you the biggest tip when it comes to content creation. Document, don't create. In very simple terms, documenting versus creating is what the real world and Keeping Up with the Kardashians are to Star Wars and Friends. And don't get confused, just because you're documenting doesn't mean you're not creating content. It's just a version of creating that is predicated more on practicality instead of having to think of stories or fantasy. Something that is very hard for most people, including myself. Think about it. You can ponder about the strategy behind every post and fabricate yourself into this influential person, or you could just be yourself. Creating this influential persona might seem especially hard if you're just someone starting to climb the ladder, and I get it. For some of you, there's a lot of pressure in that. You think that some 30, 40, or 50-year-old is going to listen to your rant video with cynicism and think, what does that kid know? But one of the biggest mistakes people make when creating content for their personal brand is trying to oversell themselves because they think that what's going to get people's attention. Whether they're a business coach or a motivational speaker or an artist, I think it's much more fruitful to talk about your process than about the actual advice you think you should be giving them. Documenting your journey versus creating an image of yourself is the difference between saying you should versus my intuition says. You get it? It changes everything. I believe that people who are willing to discuss their journeys instead of trying to front themselves as the next big thing are going to win. So when I say to put out those 6 to 7 meaningful pieces of content a day, just pick up your smartphone, open your Facebook Live, and just start talking about the things most important to you. Because in the end, the creative or how beautiful someone thinks your content is going to be subjective. What's not subjective is the fact that you need to start putting yourself out there and keep swinging. Starting is the most important part of the biggest hurdle that most people are facing. They're pondering and strategizing instead of making. They're debating what's going to happen when they haven't even looked at what's in front of them. So do me a favor and start documenting. Okay, I started, Gary. Now what, you ask? Keep doing it for another 5 years and then come back to me before you ask again. People who are tuning into your show are doing it typically because they're looking for some type of result. It's the same reason they buy your products, open your emails, and engage with your content. People listen to my podcasts, read my books, and watch my videos because they're trying to figure out more ways to market their business. I'm not publishing because I know everything about this topic. I'm publishing because I'm obsessed with this topic. I'm in a consistent search for new and better ways to market my own company, and as I run across them, have ideas, really cool things, I'm sharing them with my people. As my friend Rich Steifen once told me, we get paid a lot to think for other people. So my first question for you, as you start your show, is this. What is the big result that you're obsessed with? What are you trying to learn for yourself anyways that you can document as you're discovering it in real time? When you listen to the introduction of my podcast, I call out what the big question is that I'm answering on my show. So the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs like us, who didn't cheat and take on venture capital, who are spending money from our own pockets, how do we market in a way that lets us get our products and services and the things we believe in out to the world, yet still remain profitable? This is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Russell Brunson, and welcome to the Marketing Secrets Podcast. Inside that frame, I can talk about, share, and interview experts on anything related to helping people sell more of the things they believe in. As I mentioned earlier, I started this podcast on the back of a huge business failure. Most people would have thought it was the worst time ever to start a podcast, let alone have one about marketing a business. But looking at it through the document don't create lens reveals that it was the perfect time to start the podcast. In fact, I wish I would have started it 10 years earlier when I first got online, because I would have had so many more interesting things to share as I was learning them for the first time. In any case, how cool is it now, 6 years later, that I've documented the entire journey from this business failure to growing ClickFunnels into a company generating more than $100 million per year. Even more important, hundreds of thousands of people have been able to follow us on that journey and learn the lessons that I was learning them. Step number 3, testing your material. Recently, I was at a private mastermind retreat in Wyoming with a handful of influencers who collectively had made billions of dollars online and influenced hundreds of millions of people. One night, as we were sitting around the campfire talking, Dean Graziosi shared an insight that has changed how I look at the material I'm publishing. His story, from the best of my memory, went something like this. You know how when you watch an amazing comedian perform on stage on a late night talk show, every joke he tells lands perfectly? You find yourself wondering, how is this guy so funny? But what you don't realize is that over the last 10 years of his journey to become a comedian, he would write out 10 jokes, go to the closest dive bar, stand up on stage, and deliver his jokes. He probably watched as 1 or 2 of the jokes landed, and the rest bombed. He would then go back home, take the 2 jokes that landed, and write out 8 new ones. The next week, he would find a new piece to perform, deliver his 10 jokes, and find out that only 1 of his new jokes landed. He then has 3 jokes in total that landed. He goes back to his apartment and starts the process over again, doing this week after week, year after year, until he's found his 10 jokes. And now he's ready. That's when we get to see him, after he's perfected his material, when he stands up and lands every joke on the biggest stage in the world. I look back at my journey and think about my first book. I was so scared when I finished writing .com Secrets that I didn't want to give it to people to read. But what most people didn't realize was that a full decade before I wrote that book, I earned that book. I was obsessed with marketing, and I read, watched, and listened to everything I could get my hands on. After that, I tested the concepts and ideas on the little businesses that I was creating. I also tested the concepts on other people's businesses as a consultant. Some ideas worked, well, others failed. I started teaching at small seminars and workshops. I would explain concepts and watch to see which ideas made sense to people and which ideas were confusing. At each event, I would teach the concepts again, over and over, tweaking and refining the ideas and stories every time. I did interviews, podcasts, videos, and articles, testing my materials over and over again. From this work came concepts like the value ladder, the secret formula, the 3 types of traffic, funnel hacking, the attractive character in others. I was testing my material for more than a decade. And so while I was nervous for others to read that book, I was also confident knowing that it was ready. The same thing happened with this book, Expert Secrets. I spent 2 years talking about the concepts on my own podcast and on other people's podcasts. I developed ideas on Periscope and Facebook Live. I ran events, workshops, and coaching programs, testing the ideas on other people's businesses as well as mine. And the end product was the Expert Secrets book. Publishing your show daily as you're documenting your journey will also give you a chance to start testing your material. You'll discover what messages people connect with, which episodes get shared and which ones don't, which messages get people to show up and comment, and which messages didn't connect. It's this very process of showing up consistently and publishing that will help you refine your message, find your voice, and attract your dream customers to you. Doesn't matter whether your end goal is a book, a webinar, a keynote presentation, a viral video, or something else. The more you publish and test your material, the clearer your message will become, and the more people you will attract. Step 4. Learn to be prolific. Your audience must be fascinated with you and what you teach. If you're boring, they're not going to connect with you. I've watched a lot of experts come and go over the past 10 years, and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out why some of them last and others don't. The one thing I've noticed across the board with most experts who have had success and stayed relevant is that they're highly prolific. When I say prolific, some people think I'm talking about producing a lot of content. While that is true, there's another definition for prolific: someone who has abundant inventiveness. They invent new, unique ideas and frameworks all the time. That's the type of prolific I'm talking about here. To make the biggest impact on the most people and at the same time make the most money, it's vital that you fit your message into the sweet spot on what I call the prolific index. In the middle of the prolific index is the mainstream. This includes the ideas currently being taught to the masses via traditional mediums. For example, if you're a weight loss expert, the mainstream advice hovers around the government recommendations like the 4 food groups or the food pyramid for nutrition. While some of these principles may be good, I'd argue that others are flat out lies. Even if you believe those things are true, you aren't going to get anywhere teaching mainstream advice that people are currently getting elsewhere for free. People can go to school and learn about this stuff. It's common sense. It's not exciting. There's no money in the mainstream. Now, on both ends of this spectrum are what I call the crazy zones. There are plenty of experts who live in the crazy zones. And while you can always recruit a few people into the crazy zone, it's difficult to get the masses to take action all the way to the left or to the right. One of my favorite examples of the crazy zone in the weight loss world comes from a documentary I watched called Eat the Sun. In the movie, they talked about how people can stop eating and just gaze at the sun. Yeah, stop eating completely and just look at the sun. Sounds crazy. Well, the documentary did get me to spend a few minutes gazing at the sun, but I'm not crazy enough to give up food 100%. And I don't think anyone is going to make millions teaching that concept. As a side note, I did actually love that movie. The sweet spot, the space where you will impact the most lives and make the most money, is right in the middle. Somewhere between the mainstream advice and the crazy zone is where you want to set yourself up. I call this place the prolific zone. When you're there, you're relaying ideas that are so unique, people will notice. One of my favorite teachers in the weight loss niche is Dave Asprey of bulletproof.com. His origin story falls perfectly in the prolific zone. One day he was climbing Mount Kailash in Tibet and stopped at a guest house to shelter from minus 10-degree weather. He was given a cup of creamy yak butter tea that made him feel amazing. He tried to figure out why he felt so good. He soon discovered it was from the high fats in the tea, so he started adding butter and other fats to his coffees and teas. This experience eventually helped him create a national phenomenon called bulletproof coffee. People put butter and coconut oil into their coffee to lose weight and feel amazing. For those of you who are just hearing about this for the first time, it may seem a little crazy, but not so crazy that you completely dismiss it. And it's definitely not something the government is going to recommend. Bulletproof coffee falls directly into the prolific zone, and its message has made Dave a multi-millionaire. Did you notice how his message causes some polarity? The mainstream will probably hate it, yet there is something interesting there. When Dave tells the rest of his story and can back it up with science, it becomes a message that spreads quickly. When your message causes polarity, it attracts attention, and people will pay for it. Neutrality is boring, and rarely is money made or change created when you stay neutral. Being polar is what will attract raving fans and people who will follow you and pay for your advice. As you become more popular in your messaging, you will also notice that people on the other side of your message won't be happy about it. By creating true fans, you will always upset those on the other side. I wanted to warn you about this early because often people, including myself, really struggle when others get upset or disagree with their ideas. For every 100 true fans who follow you, you're likely to get one person who doesn't like you. And for some reason, they always seem to be the loudest. If you search my name or anyone's name who has tried to create change in others, you'll find tons of fans, as well as people who don't like us. It's just the nature of being a true leader. You've got to become okay with that, because without the polarity of your message, you can't get to your true fans and help create the change they need. One tip I learned from Dan Kennedy that helps me cope with the small percentage of haters who disagree with my message is this. If you haven't offended someone by noon each day, then you're not marketing hard enough. And Jay Abraham said, if you truly believe that what you have is useful and valuable to your clients, then you have a moral obligation to try to serve them in every way possible. And that is why I'm so aggressive in my marketing. I honestly feel like I have a moral obligation to share my message because it's changed my life, and I know it can do the same for others. I want you to start thinking about your niche. What do you teach, and where is it on the prolific index? Many times people are either playing it safe with the mainstream or they're way out in the crazy land where there is no money. You need to find your sweet spot between the middle and crazy. Step 5. Master persuasion. Throughout this book, you will learn how to persuade people. In fact, everything you learn in sections 2 and 3 of this book are all about persuasion. But before we get too deep into that, I want you to understand the core foundation of persuasion. One of my favorite books on this topic is the One-Sentence Persuasion course by Blair Warren. Blair is a persuasion expert who spent more than a decade studying and using persuasion. During that journey, he broke down exactly how to persuade people into one simple sentence. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. When I first read that, it made such an impact that I wanted to remember it forever. So I made this graphic as a reminder. I'm not going to show you the graphic here on the Business Building Book Club because I want you to pick up your own copy of Expert Secrets so you can follow along. There is so much incredible value in this book. It's absolutely worth it. Get your copy today at leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. That's leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. And the best part is you can get this beautiful value-packed hardcover book. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Russell will cover the cost of the book. Yeah. So get it, and you will love the little doodles, drawings, photos, and everything that's in this book. So let's get back to reading. Here's a quick recap of why each of these actions is so important. I included Blair's explanation because he explains these concepts so masterfully. Encourage their dreams. As the leader, it's vital that you first understand your audience's dreams, then encourage them inside the new opportunity you're creating for them. Parents often discourage their children's dreams for their own good and attempt to steer them towards a more reasonable goals. And children also accept this as normal until others come along who believe them and encourage their dreams. when this happens, who do you think has more power? Parents or strangers? Justify their failures. Most people who become followers and then fans will have tried to make a change before. You'll not be the first person they have tried to learn from. For some reason, they didn't get their needs met from any prior encounters. It's important that you take the blame for past failures off their shoulders and place it onto the old opportunities they attempted in the past. This way, they will be more open to trying your new opportunity. Will millions cheer for Dr. Phil as he tells people to accept responsibility for their mistakes? Millions more are looking for someone to take that responsibility off their shoulders. To tell them that they are not responsible for their lot in life. And while accepting responsibility is essential to gaining control of one's own life, assuring others they are not responsible is essential to gaining influence over theirs. We need to look no further than politics to see this powerful game being played at its best. Allay their fears. To allay is to diminish or to put to rest. If you can put people's fears to rest and give them hope, they will follow you to the ends of the earth and back again. When we're afraid, it's almost impossible to concentrate on anything else. And while everyone knows this, what do we do when someone else is afraid and we need to get their attention? Well, that's right. We tell them not to be afraid and to expect that to do the trick. Does it work? Hardly. And yet we don't seem to notice. We go on as if we've solved the problem and the person before us fades further away. But there are those who do realize this and pay special attention to our fears. They do not tell us not to be afraid. They work with us until our fear subsides. They present evidence. They offer support. They tell us stories. But they do not tell us how to feel and expect us to feel that way. When you're afraid, which type of person do you prefer to be with? Confirm their suspicions. Your audience is already suspicious of you and others in your market. They want to believe change is possible, but they're skeptical about making the leap forward. When you can confirm in a story that you had a similar suspicions and describe how you overcame them, it will bond people to you. One of our favorite things to say is, "I knew it." There's just nothing quite like having our suspicions confirmed. When another person confirms something that we suspect, we not only feel a surge of superiority, we feel attracted to the one who helped us make that surge come about. Hitler confirmed the suspicions of many Germans about the cause of their troubles and drew them further into his power by doing so. Cults often confirm the suspicions of prospective members by telling them that their families are out to sabotage them. It's a simple thing to confirm the suspicions of those who are desperate to believe them. Throw rocks at their enemies. One big key to growing your following is creating an us versus them kind of feeling within your community. Take a stand for what you believe, why you're different, and who you're collectively fighting against. Why is your movement better than the alternatives? Nothing bonds people like having a common enemy. I realize how ugly this sounds, and yet it's true just the same. Those who understand what I'm saying can utilize this. Those who don't understand it, or worse, understand but refuse to address it, are throwing away one of the most effective ways of connecting with others. No matter what you may think, rest assured that people have enemies. All people. And it's been said that everyone you meet is engaged in a great struggle. The thing they're struggling with is their enemy. Whether it's another individual, a group, an illness, a setback, a rival philosophy or religion, or what have you, when people are engaged in a struggle, they're looking for others to join them. Those who do become more than friends. They become partners. Step 6 is to care. A lot. The next part of being an expert is showing people that you actually care about them. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care." If your audience thinks you're just in this to make money, your vehicle for change will not last long. Your following will not grow. In fact, it will shrink quickly. If you choose your ideal clients correctly, you'll have people you'd be willing to serve and teach and train for free because that's how much you care about them. One struggle most of us have as we try to serve our audience is the guilt sometimes associated with getting them to pay us. There are 2 reasons it's essential to their success that they pay you. First, those who pay attention. Over the past decade, I've invited my friends and family members to sit in on events that others have paid $50,000 to attend. Not once in those 10 years has a single one of the people who sat in for free launched a successful company. Yet in the same room sat people who invested in themselves. They heard the exact same information, and because they invested money to be there, turned the same information into multi-million-dollar a year companies. Yet those who pay attention. And the more they pay, the closer attention they pay. You're doing your audience a huge disservice if you undervalue what you're selling. Second, the more success you have, the less time you'll have. Remember, when I first started, how proud I was when I answered all of my support emails and talked often for hours with everyone who asked me a question. I thought I was serving my audience, but because of how accessible I was to everyone, I wasn't able to serve many people at all. You will need to put up barriers to protect your time so you can serve more people. By charging for what you do, you are showing those who do invest how much you really care about their success. Those are a few of the steps to finding your voice and building a tribe so you can change their world. Understand, though, that you don't become a leader overnight. Start sharing your message and become consistent with it so you can find your voice. Figure out where your message can polarize people into true fans. Share your backstory and flaws, be transparent, and over time, you will naturally become the leader your tribe needs. So with that, my friends, it's time that we close the book on this chapter of Expert Secrets. So remember, you can get your copy of the book that we're reading right now, Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson, here at the Business Building Book Club. You can find your copy at leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. That's leadershipmade.com/expert-secrets. And the best part of that is that you can get the book. You don't have to pay for the book. Just pay for shipping, and it's yours. I promise. All right, everyone. I will see you back next episode where we're going to dive into a conversation with a super, super special guest. We're going to be diving into everything we've covered in the last 2 episodes. We're going to be having a conversation about that with someone who is near and dear to my heart, who is someone who is a mentor to me in this space. And I'm so excited for you to get to chat with her. All right, everyone. So I'm going to sign off. I'm Coach Molly from 3 Pines Leadership. This is the Business Building Book Club. We're reading Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, my friends, remember, I love you and be excellent to each other.